Welcome to the Caravan Show, where we discuss all things caravans. That's right, everything you need to know about caravans, from weights, towing, maintenance, appliances, renovations, buying a caravan, repairs, destinations and reviews. We'll also chat with some Aussie legends, manufacturers, suppliers and of course, people who love caravans. Take it away, Roy.
So g'day everyone, it's Roy here from the podcast and the Caravan Show. Today I have the pleasure of talking to two lovely people at Murweh. Now Murweh is up here in Queensland. I'll get them to tell you a little bit more about that in a moment. So I'd like you to welcome the Mayor, Sean. Well, actually he prefers to be called Zorro. And Zorro's assistant there today, who's the tourism expert, is Monique. So g'day there, Zorro and Monique.
G'day, Roy.
Zorro, I believe this is a new role for you. You've only just come into this role.
Yeah, Roy, I was a councillor for 4 years and the election was back in end of March. And, yeah, mate, I was successful in getting the mayor, I should say. And, yeah, mate, it's been a really good learning curve for me in the first 3 to 4 months. And, yeah, mate, it's excellent. It's COVID-19 definitely has thrown a bit of a different spin on it, but yeah, I just said to Monique, Roy, that it's been a lot of firsts today. I've done 2 meetings that I've never been to, and this is my first podcast, so I'm very honoured to be here.
Good on you. And you are actually a local businessman too. I believe that you operate with your wife. Is that correct?
That's right, Roy. I was lucky enough that I born and bred here, and I did my apprenticeship where I am today, and I went away for 10 years, tried to play a bit of football in Toowoomba, but luckily enough for me, 20 years ago, I got offered the butcher shop, and yeah, mate, I've been there ever since. So realistically, I could tell you that I haven't moved too far since my teen years, but it's been a pleasure.
So you're the local sausage maker?
I'm one of them, Roy, yeah. And I just, and lucky we're doing a podcast, because if you could see me, I like eating them too. So, no, mate, it's great. It's a great place to live.
Good on you. Monique, I'm going to ask you this question because I'd rather ask you than ask Sean. Where does Zorro come from?
Believe it or not, I probably was at the same gig he was when he got nicknamed Zorro. I grew up in Quilpie next door to Charleville, and, you know, pony clubs and all those sorts of things kicked off. But I'm pretty sure, from what I've heard, the story goes that he dressed up one day as Zorro at one of those events, and that name stuck. And
he's been stuck with it ever since.
Ever since, yeah.
Good on you.
I think it could be. I don't know about stuck with it, Roy. Everyone in Charleville has some sort of nickname. It's probably lucky that you're not here with us. But, yeah, mate, that's unfortunately, I'd like to give you some exotic story. But I went to a fancy dress when I was 8, and it was a fair while ago, and, mate, it's stuck, yeah.
Yeah, this is a family show, so we won't get into some of those other nicknames that are getting bouted around.
We won't.
So, listen, tell me about your region. As you know, we're promoting caravanning and caravanners. So, have you any idea what sort of number of caravan parks and free caravan parks you have in your region?
Roy, we've got we have 8 caravan parks in our town in Charleville, and what we have is that's including Morven and Augathella. So in our shire we have 3 towns. We have actually 4 towns. We have Claddie, Charleville, Augathella, and Morven. So we have 6 caravan parks in Charleville itself, and then we have 2 budget parks, one in Morven, one in Augathella. And what they are, when I say budget, they're actually it's a donation box system. So and then what we try and encourage there is they're about 100 kilometres away from Charleville, like in a triangle. And yeah, so we try and encourage that budget camping there to get the tourists to spend some time in those smaller towns, but use us. They're our satellite towns, as we call them, Roy. So, yeah, mate, all up, we have 8 in our shire.
So you're actually a fairly large shire too, aren't you? Do you know how big your shire is?
I think something along the lines of about 2,200 kilometres square, I believe. Yeah, it is quite a large area. I know we cover a lot of roads, Roy, but I haven't actually ever looked to see how many square kilometres. Sorry, I've underestimated big time. It's 40,764 square kilometres, Roy. I apologise.
But with a fairly scarce population, as I understand it.
Yeah, mate. We're probably looking at about Well, the last census, I believe we had about 4,300 people in our shire.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting to see how that eventuates when they do the census towards the end of this year. But we have it's hard to gauge because we have had some population decline, but then in the last fortnight alone, the high school's brought up 10 kids. So mate, we cover a fair bit of ground, and like I say, we have 3 of the larger towns, but Charleville being the base with about 3,200 people in it.
And my understanding is that you have a reasonably high Aboriginal or Indigenous, should I say, population in your region as well.
Yeah, Roy, I would say probably about 15% of our population would be Indigenous, and probably more so in Charleville. But we have a really good connection with our Aboriginal people, the Bidjara people, and they actually have their own health service which they operate for non-Indigenous and Indigenous, and it's funded by the federal government, but it provides a service to our town as well as our hospital. And mate, we do have a fairly high population, but they contribute very well to our society.
Yeah, do you get much art and craft coming from that area?
We do. They do a lot of programs, and they have a couple of programs like the Deadly Choices and that sort of programs. That's on train the Indigenous and to put them in the jobs and things like that. But yeah, we're very lucky in our shire, Roy, that above Augathella, the Bidjara people actually operate a property, and it's actually on there. It's got the Lost Temple, they call it, and that's a lot of caves, Indigenous caves and things like that. And it's a growing. One day I'd like to really see as tourism goes that could grow into an industry in its own, because as we know that there is a lot of places around Australia that are tapping into that. And but it's a work in progress, and they operate a cattle property out of that at the moment, and it's about 150 kilometres from Augathella, so that's right on our boundary.
Beautiful. Well, hopefully when this COVID-19 thing sort of finally ends, that will be opened up into some of their regions again, because at the moment I would think it's probably not a good idea to go into those regions. We need to protect them from picking up this COVID, which I believe would be fairly devastating for them. So your main centre is Charleville, yes?
Yes, that's right.
And how far out of Brisbane would that be?
So we're probably about 890 kilometres out of Brisbane, around there, about 900 kilometres. It's about 9.5, 10 hours by car, 2 hours by flight, and about 22 hours on the train. But yeah, mate, so we're about 10 hours from Brisbane.
This is one of the things we've been talking a lot about, is that we have this fantastic, massive country that we live in, and that we really want to see people travelling around within our country. But travelling around within our own states is also massive. I mean, if you were in Europe, for example, and we said that Brisbane was London, going to Charleville, we're out, I think we'd be pretty close to Moscow. I mean, that's a big distance, and there's so much to see.
You're right, Roy, and there's a lot of good places to stay around. So I'll just say this quickly: is one of my counsellors had to go to Brisbane for a necessity to see a doctor, and because of the COVID-19, he actually drove down in the morning, saw the doctor, and drove home that evening. So he's driven 2,000, probably about 1,800 kilometres in the one day, and got home about midnight that night. So, but like you say, that's just unheard of in other places. But in the bush, we don't sort of worry about that. And there's a lot of, like you say, from Brisbane, there's a lot of places to stay and see.
They make them tough out at Murweh, don't they?
They do, mate. They get paid by the kilometre, Roy.
Being such a big place, I should imagine there's a fairly diverse array of things that you can do there. You'd have, there must be places that people can go fishing, bushwalks. I mean, there must be heaps of things. Tell us some of the things you can do in your area.
So you sort of sound like you might be leading towards other things to do that might not be able to be Google searched so much there, Roy, but I reckon that if you came out here, there's not a minute that you'd be bored for it. So plenty of fishing. We've got a couple of rivers that people can go and fish along or camp along. Plenty of fishing, plenty of bushwalks, even a nice internal bushwalk in town here, actually, at the Graham Andrews Parkland. So lovely man-made lake there where people could go to the Visitor Information Centre, grab a map there, and it'll even show you what sort of, trees are around that area there as well. But Murweh is probably fairly well known for its outback night dark skies. So we've got the Charleville Cosmos Centre based here. We've plenty of things to see and do here at the Cosmos Centre. So we've got a fairly big observatory that hosts 4 14-inch telescopes. We've just this last week finished the second observatory, which houses a 30-inch telescope, which we've nicknamed the Star Cannon because it is huge. We've recently also completed the planetarium, which is its main name will be Astrodome. And in that planetarium will be, so fairly similar to if you were going over to the observatory and it was a cloudy night though, you'll be able to go over to the planetarium and see the night sky without, you won't actually be looking through a telescope, but you'll still be able to see the night sky if it's a cloudy night in the observatory. Or we have 3 other films that will be playing in there as well. And they're based around the Earth as we know it, and there's kids shows there as well. So much to do. Another thing Charleville's fairly famous for is the top secret World War II base. So
I was going to ask you about that. They do a tour or something there, don't they?
Yeah, so that's our latest project that we're growing at the moment as well. So in 1942, there was up to 3,500 Americans based here, the United States Army Air Force personnel. For 4 years, they called Charleville home, and they built around 101 buildings on the base, Roy. So you can imagine that the stories and whatnot that would have come from that era. But we operate a tour daily, starts from the Cosmos Centre, and it just drives around the airport base, and you actually get to see and do and hear what they were doing here. You get to experience, the concrete slabs and the buildings and whatnot that remain. So there's a couple of buildings that still remain. That tour goes for about an hour and a half. But soon you'll actually be able to go into another building that we've just completed building. So we haven't fitted it out yet, but the building itself's completed, and that will be called the World War II Secret Base. So that'll be the story of, you'll be able to go in and see the interactives, and I won't give too much away because you'll have to come and see it, but you'll be able to experience that as well. But on top of that too, then, we've also put a movie into the planetarium. It's called World to War. So you'll be able to experience a bit of World War II movie in the internal dome of the planetarium as well. So, look, we've got so much to do out here. So bring everybody out and come and see us.
Sounds fantastic. Monique, you nearly stole my thunder with that one, but actually I'm going to put you back on the spot now because I know you're going to enjoy doing it. One of the questions I always ask is, you can get a lot of this information on Google by doing some research, but there's always a couple of local secrets that doesn't make it to Google, and I do ask people to share some of that with our listeners, and maybe pick 1 or 2 places, maybe 3 if you can, things that you find very special about your area, those little secrets that you wouldn't normally hear about. So you've told us all those ones. I'm now going to really push you hard and say, find some more for me.
I reckon you nearly topped the list by going and checking out Rude Jude downtown, and she'll tell you all the secret fishing spots there is to go. But Judy runs Judy's Brows Inn downtown in Alfred Street there, and she's got an amazing shop. The shop's worth a look at alone, but Jude's just, one of those girls that's just got all the information about everything. I reckon that'd be my number one.
She's very colourful, Roy. I think a lot of the people would. She tells a lot of good stories. Obviously, another thing is you sort of alluded to it before, was that Charleville's built on the Warrego River. That's on the edge of town, and that's famous to us for a couple of reasons. Sometimes you will catch a fish, but obviously with numerous floods, but 1990 probably, which brings to light, but that's 30 years ago this year in April. But unfortunately, because of COVID, we were going to have one big commemoration party, but we're going to do that towards the end of the year. So, Roy, if you were going to travel, that would be the time to come. And mate, I would say probably the other secret that we got out here is just the people, the community. Everyone's just so happy and friendly, and a lot of the comments I get through the butcher shop from the tourists is they just can't believe how good people are they just embrace having tourists here, and I think that just comes down to the easygoing lifestyle that we have, and how accepting people are, and thankful that we do get a lot of tourists. It's probably our second biggest industry outside of agriculture. So, yeah, mate.
And it's important to remember, I mean, these beautiful people that you have there that do have open arms and welcoming people in have had to suffer like the rest of us have, but in their case, it can be a lot more devastating because you do rely on this population coming through that just hasn't been present. So it's fairly important, if not extremely important, that we start getting some visitors out there and saying good day and having a chat with the locals and finding out some of these little secrets and so forth, because it's such an important part of your infrastructure, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%, Roy. I mean, it's quite funny. Over the COVID-19, over Easter the weekend, all my mates that live away, I would have had about 8 or 10 phone calls, I think, and they've all said to me, and Monique's touched on a couple of the points, and they said, how's it affecting you? And I said, well, not at all. I'm at home. I've got the fire lit out the back. I'm drinking beer. I'm looking at the best night sky you'll ever see. It's so, those sort of things is when we live in where we live, that's why we live here, and that's the beauty of it. But mate, I like to say to you, and you don't sort of appreciate that stuff.
Yeah. And you know where to get the best steak for the barbie too.
Like I say, Roy, when the customers come into the shop, they always ask me what the product's like, and I'll be honest with you, 125 kilos of pure muscle, and I stand behind the product I sell, Roy. So yeah,
that's 125 kilos of good experience and product knowledge. That's what that really is.
Yeah, mate. So I enjoy my product, and my doctor, not that my doctor likes it, but mate, like I say, I just say that to people. I just say that as a bit of a joke, because that's, even though we've got to be serious sometimes, but I think if you can't make fun of yourself, you can't make fun of anyone. So, mate, I just think, yeah, like you say, it's we'd appreciate anyone that wanted to travel come through our way. I'll probably say this, that a few years ago we thought we'd try and make ourselves into a destination, but mate, we want to try, and we've got some really good things happening with our Southwest Red region, which is the 6 shires around us. We've got the natural science loop, and those sort of things. So we sort of promote that. Like, not only do we have a lot of tourist activity going on around us, there's also our towns around us need those people just as much as we need them. And we're trying to, our biggest goal in the next few years is work together and turn this into a region that stands on its own 2 feet.
The other thing that I like to ask too, because it is important for our listeners, is caravan repairs and motor vehicle repairs.
We do have both of those. So we've got a range of different businesses here in Charleville, Roy, but we've also got businesses that sort of specialise in, one of them that comes to mind at the moment is the refrigeration place, but they actually also have a little specialty area out the back where they will fix and repair caravans. Then one of the other guys in town who's a mechanic they all sort of do a little bit of everything, diversify. So there's plenty of that sort of, if anybody's got a caravan and they're worried about, the caravan's breaking down, or, air conditioning, or their fridges in their vans, or gas or whatnot, the hardwares will be able to help with that. So we've got all of that covered. And if anybody's sort of worried about that, we can always send them a list of our businesses and repairers as well. So we've got lists, see and do guides and repairs and maintenance lists, all those type of things that are available to be emailed to any caravanners as well coming this way.
So people travelling from, the Brisbane area, and I talk Brisbane purely because that's the most common place that, that the majority of travellers will go through a major centre. In this case, in Queensland, it is Brisbane. So if they're travelling from Brisbane to Charleville or Augathella or any one of your places, there's things to do along the way. There are other towns to visit as well, isn't there?
Absolutely. Gosh, yeah. So Zorro touched on it there before about that Southwest Red region. That we're promoting that area at the moment called Queensland Southern Outback. Now that covers from Roma down to St George, across to Cunnamulla, out to Thargomindah, up to Quilpie and back into Charleville and across. So that area there alone in Queensland Southern Outback, there's so much there to see and do, whether it be paid or free there's so many opportunities for everybody, but all of those locations will be able to help you with, petrol, batteries, tyre changing, gas bottles, all that sort of things available in that whole region.
Yeah, and again, these are great places to go because we all basically speak the same language and same money and sometimes the same sense of humour either, Zorro.
Yeah, 100%.
And even on that natural sciences loop topic there earlier there as well, Roy, natural sciences loop covers Charleville, Quilpie, Thargomindah and back to Cunnamulla. Each one of those regions actually boasts its own natural science.
Yeah.
So, for example, Charleville alone, we've got the outback night sky, obviously that natural science, but it also is a little bit of history and geography and all those sorts of things thrown into that area there. So we've got the unique endangered species like the bilby as well here, where they have a breeding area for the bilby. So, and then head out to Quilpie where they focus on opal mining, and then down to the Eromanga Natural History Museum. So there's so much really, not each town has its same things. There's always something a little bit different.
Yeah, I guess the sky views from your area is particularly good because you're not getting that light pollution from the major cities, are you?
Yeah, exactly. And people just can't believe that when they do walk outside here. It's so clear.
And I'll say this too, Roy, that the guides, we actually had some a little bit of media stuff done last night, and little things like I saw, the sourceman. Well, Mike, the guide, he's our head guide in that area. Quickly pointed out that it's not called the sourceman; it's actually Ryan and things like that, and which is always good. It's always good that as we were taught as kids that these stars and to help us to get to places and things like that. If you ever lost and whatever, that they actually had more to it than just that. And the staff here are excellent. And isn't it great that you can use an asset that's been readily available to us for thousands of years? So as Monique said, Roy, everyone's working together. I mean, you got the big rig at Roma is probably the first stop if you're coming from Brisbane, and then down to St George, and everyone's been very lucky with some funding towards their tourism stuff. And I believe St George is putting in a artesian spa, Monique. I thought they'd got money for that, and then, like we say, then we just move around the 6 down to Cunnamulla, and Cunnamulla have been pretty unique. They've done really well in the last couple of years. That they had the Cunnamulla Festival, but also had a poetry. A guy done bush poetry for a week, and I believe they had 200 or 300 vans there just for the week. So just doing that sort of stuff is huge. The economic benefit to your towns is, I just think that everyone's starting to appreciate that the economic value that the tourism brings to your towns is far outweighs the thought pattern that was probably 15, 20 years ago.
Yeah, true Australians travel in Australia.
100%.
Yeah, exactly. And Zorro touched on it a little bit there with, events riding off the back of others. Like, for example, here in Charleville, we usually host an event called the Halfway There Shindig at the end of June, and people travelling through to the Big Red Bash actually pull up here for a night. So last year we had 1,000 fellows down the street, ladies and gents down the street, that extra to what we would have had, without that event. And then our other major event for the year, the Bilby Festival, sort of rides off the back of the Birdsville races. So obviously neither of those are happening this year, so we won't be getting those sort of visitors, but they all help.
Yeah, but there's really no reason why you shouldn't be getting them. I mean, you don't have to be going through your town to go somewhere else, because actually your place is a place worth visiting. I mean, if I was going there, I wouldn't need to be thinking, well, I'm just going to go through here overnight. I can actually stop and stay. In fact, you could stay forever, I was told.
Oh, absolutely. We did. We're still here.
Yeah.
Still plenty to do.
My wife says that, Roy. No, you're right, Roy, and I think that's probably what's changed in the thought pattern towards how councils probably thought about our tourism in the last few years is, we probably had some figures around that said that people were staying 2 to 3 nights, and our plan was to try and get them to stay that 4th night, that one extra. To do that, you need the attractions to absorb that, and they need to be worthy. And I believe we're slowly but surely we're almost there. And the attractions that we've built in the last couple of years with the funding, like I say, Roy, if anyone out there, I I had one of my new councillors come on, and we come out and done a tour a few weeks ago, and he said to me after that he was from between Augathella and Morven on a property, and he's been all over the world, and he said the facility that we have at the Cosmos Centre is world class. He said that planetarium is the show that we watched that they showed us. As he said, it's like you won't see any better than that anywhere. So to have that facility here in Charleville as backup, I'm excited at the season that we're going to have.
So, is there a particular time of year that's better to visit your region, or are you sort of 12 months of the year?
Depends who you are and where you come from, really. But we say generally, Roy, from April through to September is the more comfortable time of the year. So the weather's a little bit cooler, the days are beautiful. Yes, we get a few cool nights, but the days are lovely. It does get obviously warmer over the summer months, but we love that too because you can get out to the river or you can go to the pool. There's so much available around. But generally our peak season for the visitors would be April through to September. Yeah.
So, guys, I've got to say you've been fantastic. You sound like a lot of fun. There must be a lot of laughs and giggles around around your place.
Absolutely.
Guys, look, you've been fantastic, and really I hope we catch up again in the not-too-distant future. So on behalf of my listeners, I'd like to thank you for telling us all about your area and what you do and what you got to offer. And, I'm going to make a point of, I keep saying this to everyone, my bucket list is getting bigger by the day. I want to see all these things there is to see, and I know why I'm sitting around talking to people instead of doing it.
Well, Roy, in this job, I officially get one official invite, and I'm going to extend that. I've only been in the job for 3 months. I'm going to extend that to you, that when you come to Charleville, that Monique and I will show you around the Cosmos Centre. And thank you very much for calling us today and letting us in on the podcast. Like I said, this is my first podcast, so I'm very honoured. And, mate, I appreciate the time today.
Fantastic. Thank you. And we'll catch you on the flip side.
And I'll just give you one more tip, Roy, to any of the listeners out there that might want any further information. Just follow us on Facebook at Experience Charleville or go to our website, experiencecharleville.com.au, and there'll be everything there. They'll even be able to book our products online.
Good tip. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, bye for now.
Okay.
My name is Sean Zorro Radnich. I'm the Mayor of the Murweh Shire and I live in Charleville. Now, our tourism team has been hard at work getting ready for the tourism season to be lifted with the COVID-19 restrictions. And we need you to take care of yourselves. If you are feeling sick, have the man flu, the ladies flu, whatever kind of flu, can you please just remember that we are COVID-19 safe in the outback at the moment, and we need you to take care because we will be here next year. So if you're sick and you miss out, we want to see you in the future. Once restrictions are lifted, we look forward to seeing you in Southwest Queensland, Southern Outback.